everybody at this summit will be wondering, where is this deal on the continuum from an extension of a ceasefire to a permanent settlement? They're all very familiar with Donald Trump's bombast. They're wondering how close it is, how much it really improves, if at all, on the original deal that President Obama led in 2015 with Iran, and which Donald Trump ripped up. And they will be, as they have shown themselves, these other leaders of the G7, very willing to praise Donald Trump, very willing, no doubt, in the case of Britain tomorrow. I'd expect to hear Keir Starmer say we stand ready to help with sweeping mines out of the Strait of Hormuz and the rest of it, but everybody's scratching their heads about the details. And all these other leaders, to varying degrees, but pretty much all the others, would like the focus to be somewhere else. This is not a war that most of them wanted, and they would like the focus to be on Ukraine. President Macron in the chair will be trying to pull the focus across to Ukraine tomorrow. I'd expect to hear a bit more about some sanctions that are being applied to Russia from different countries and the rest of it. But these summits are increasingly becoming a search for a common ground that seems to shrink in front of our eyes. And you get a sense of that. That whole search bleeds into, that problem bleeds into the logistics of these summits. President Macron, like other hosts, is worried that President Trump might leave early. He's left two G7s early. So he dangled the carrot of a dinner in Versailles at the end just to make sure that he stays till the end. This is a summit, by the way, that is happening a day later than planned because President Trump wanted to watch cage fighting on the White House lawn. So everybody making adaptations around the president, and one of those people will be Keir Starmer. We don't need to repeat what quicksand he is on at home in domestic politics, but he's got a bit of quicksand here. He hasn't seen President Trump face to face since he really annoyed him by not backing him on Iran and allowing British bases to be used for offensive attacks on Iran. And now, added to that, he has a whole disagreement about social media.
Thanks, Gary. Gary Gibbon there in Évian. Well, before he took off for the G7 in the early hours, the US president was, as Gary said, hosting a very different kind of event, celebrating his 80th and America's 250th birthday with an ultimate fighting championship on the White House lawn. Harry Fawcett reports.
No question what Donald Trump was determined to have for his 80th birthday, an end to the war so he could concentrate on the fighting.
Oh, the land of the free.
Part Dr. Strangelove, part Imperial Rome, the UFC Freedom 250 cage fight on the south lawn of the White House, a confection of Trumpian patriotism, capitalism and TV spectacle.
It doesn't seem real. None of it seems real.
Trump had earlier posted that an agreement had been reached with Iran, that the Strait of Hormuz would be opened, telling the Wall Street Journal there was no rush to extract Iran's highly enriched uranium, that he'd never cared about regime change. A little over 12 hours later, a more traditional presidential arrival for the G7 summit in the French Alps.
Everything is very nice, thank you.
Alongside President Macron, he basked in the immediate effect of his announcement, a surge in the stock markets, a fall in the oil price.
The Iran deal that we made is going to bring a lot of success to the world, because the oil was really clogged up there for a while. He would call me on occasion, say, "Come on, please, let's go with the oil prices." But the oil is coming way down, so I'm very honored by it.
Each side promoting its own version of the memorandum. The US said it meant permanent toll-free travel through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran that it would collect service fees. Iranian state media said the US had been forced into a deal that would release half of the $24 billion of frozen Iranian assets, the US insisting Iran would have to make good on commitments before it got a dime.
Such deep-rooted mistrust exists between the Iranian people and the US government. The United States still has a long way to go before it can earn the trust of the Iranian people.
Throughout the war, the US insisted its chief goal was to deny Iran a nuclear weapon, a job now to be done not by strikes, but 60 days of talks. The reported outline, a multi-year ban on uranium enrichment, followed by a cap, along with an unspecified means of dealing with Iran's current near-weapons-grade stockpile.
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had in the first place.
All of which only ups the pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who so hated Barack Obama's deal and rejoiced at President Trump's decision to pull out of it. His closeness to Trump, so often used as an asset at home, could this election year now turn to liability with allies and opponents alike.
The agreement with Iran is a bad agreement for Israel and for the entire free world. Iran must not have nuclear weapons.
With the stroke of a pen, the tremendous military achievements of our pilots in the skies of Iran and the heroism of our fighters on Lebanese soil were erased.
Both Iran and the mediator Pakistan say an end to the fighting in Lebanon is included in this initial agreement. Israel's defense minister insists its troops will remain in the south indefinitely, that Israel will respond with full force if attacked by Iran as a result. Throughout the talks, events in Lebanon have threatened to derail this agreement. They could still, even after it's officially signed on Friday.
Harry Fawcett reporting. Well, let's go now over to our foreign affairs correspondent, Secunda Kamani, who is in Beirut. Secunda.
Well, Aisha, close to 4,000 people have been killed here in Lebanon during this conflict. Today, there's been relative peace, although at least one person died as a result of Israeli fire. As you heard in that report, the US-Iran agreement, it seems, is meant to include a ceasefire here, but it's not clear what exactly it says, if anything, about the presence of Israeli troops in southern Lebanon, where they're occupying a chunk of territory. Israel says that they're not going anywhere. Hezbollah, for its part, says that it will not tolerate continued Israeli attacks, as we saw following an earlier ceasefire. For many of the more than 1 million displaced people, though, this has been a chance to finally return home.
Roads that had been deserted, now coming back to life, as families forced from their homes by war return to southern Lebanon. Their route lined with rubble and debris. The city of Nabatea had been a ghost town during the war, battered by Israeli strikes. Even paramedics had been targets. Now they're helping spruce up the streets. Little remains of the city's historic market. Abu Ali's coffee roasting business had been a local institution for nearly a century.
I normally would say we take a hit, we fix it, we make it right, but it's completely destroyed.
Do you think you'll rebuild your shop?
God willing, tomorrow, or in about 6 or 7 months, you will come and see what's here. One of the most beautiful establishments in Nabatea.
The mood amongst many of those returning is celebratory, but the damage inflicted here is immense.
Well, this is just a scene of complete and utter devastation. It's almost as if this city has been hit by an earthquake. Of course, actually all this damage here caused by Israeli strikes. And just yesterday, it would have been far too dangerous for us to be here setting foot in the city centre. Even now, Israeli troops are just positioned a few kilometres away. We've been hearing a drone overhead. No sign yet that they're going to be withdrawing from the positions that they've been occupying.
In the distance, several explosions ring out. Local officials have warned residents not to rush back. Dina wanted to check on her home as soon as she could, after being amongst the more than 1 million displaced in this country. As soon as she gets back into her apartment, Dina prostrates herself in prayer. Next up, it's watering the houseplants. Her home was badly damaged in the last round of fighting in 2024, she tells me, and she'd only been back a few months before this latest war started. I hadn't even finished paying for the repairs, she says, and then it started all again. Despite, or because of, repeated devastating conflicts with Israel, many in southern Lebanon have long been supportive of Hezbollah, who they see as a resistance group. Others in the country blame Hezbollah for entering the war with Israel. But not here. Daniel is Dina's nephew.
We lost everything. We lost material things, and we've lost so many friends. That's the worst part.
Who do you blame? Who do you hold responsible for all of this that you've been through?
Israel. All the responsibility is on Israel. In the end, we're a people defending our land. To be clear, none of us here are part of any group, but we're defending our land. This land, we love it, and no one can come and take it from us.
The queues of cars heading back down south are growing longer and longer. But further clashes between Hezbollah and Israel still look a very real possibility. And amidst the rubble, you wonder how long it will be before this country is dragged into bloody conflict once again.
Well, this whole deadly and costly war has, I think, been an exercise in the limits of military power. For the Americans, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on whether this agreement with Iran really is any better than an agreement that could have been reached prior to the war. For Prime Minister Netanyahu, he's seen his relationship with the US deteriorate whilst the Iranian regime and Hezbollah are still very much standing. And for Hezbollah, which, let's remember, started this latest round of the conflict here by firing at Israel, well, Israeli soldiers now occupy even more Lebanese territory. So, in short, despite all the loss of life, all the economic damage, what fundamentally, you could ask, has really changed?